Dave Cooper Live, we connect the industry leaders in the architectural, engineering, and construction space with the people, the products, and the processes to help them build it better. All right, welcome everybody. What if we told you that one of the most groundbreaking housing initiatives in America isn't coming out of Silicon Valley or a fancy design lab, but from the Lower Sioux Indian community in Minnesota, and it's made out of hemp? That's right, industrial hemp. But this isn't just about building homes. It's about building a future. The Lower Sioux Nations are planning for the next 5 or 10 years. They're planning for the next 7 generations. Rooted in indigenous knowledge and driven by innovation, their Hempcrete housing project is reshaping how we think about sustainability, sovereignty, and community. Our guest today is Danny Desjardins, project manager for this incredible initiative. You may have seen their story in Patagonia's, that's right, Patagonia's The Green Buffalo, and now you'll hear it on Dave Cooper Live. So let's dive into a story of regeneration, resilience, and radically better ways to build. But before we get into this, we got to give some big shout outs to the supporting members. How about Cobalt Creed? They service builders and developers, prefab home builders, and manufacturers, allowing them to achieve the highest levels of comfort, indoor air quality, and low energy costs with their HVAC systems installed for their projects and their customers. Their approach is simple. By using their proprietary small duct, high velocity central heating and cooling system. If you want to learn more, you can go check them out at cobaltcreed.com. Now, a few words from these other supporting members. CombiLift is the largest global manufacturer of multi-directional forklifts and straddle carriers, a leader in long load handling solutions, offering a free warehouse and site optimization design service. CombiLift helps companies of all sizes and from every industry maximize the capacity, safety, and efficiency of their warehouse and storage facilities. A big thank you to Paul Short and the team at CombiLift for helping us all to build it better. Visit them at combilift.com. Forward Solutions Group is successfully driving companies to succeed where others have failed. Are you looking to start a factory, optimize your existing factory, streamline your production, or take your team to the next level? Whatever your needs are, Forward has a solution for you. Reach out to Ben at forwardsolutionsgroup.com. All right. Again, thank you to all of our supporting members and all of the members you see going across our ticker below. We can't do any or all of this without their support, so we can keep this live, real, and unedited. And if you want to be a supporting member, please feel free to reach out to us. We'd love to have you part of our community. All right. Without further ado, let's bring Danny onto the show. Danny, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, man. Hey, listen, I have to tell you, this is exciting for me because we've never had a show like this with, the Sioux Nation or any of the other communities around the world, even. But they're all fighting a similar fight that you guys are fighting. So this story is going to be, I hope, very inspiring for other people to watch and for me to learn as well. But Danny, before we get into this, we want to know everything about you from the moment you were born this very moment in time. Do not leave out any of the good stuff from the hospital, or we're going to have your entire community on. And I'm sure they got some dirt on you, even though you said there's no dirt. Somebody will embarrass you. But let's have a little fun with this. Tell us a little bit about who you are.
Well, I don't know if you want to know everything. I kind of like to overshare sometimes. And so, but yeah, Danny DeJarle, the Lower Sioux Indian community, born and raised here, lived in this community. I'm a member of the tribe, father of five. All five of my children are members of the tribe. Grew up here. We've had a casino in the community. That's basically been the only thing we have had in the community for the past 40 years. And now we are venturing out into the hemp industry. And so we have a industrial hemp campus that we now are operating. So we've been growing industrial hemp since 2016. We have been building with industrial hemp for the last 2 years now. For the last 3 years, I've been the project manager for the Lower Sioux Industrial Hemp Construction Program. And so what we do is we take industrial hemp and process it at our hemp campus and build homes out of hempcrete right here in the community.
Let's talk about the story, right? What's happening in the Indian communities, not just where you're at, but across this country. Housing is an issue. Work is an issue. The casinos have been a big help for a lot of the communities, right? It's given you that income and revenue source, but it's still not enough.
And I wouldn't say it's always been help, money isn't always help, and especially when it comes from something that brings addiction and other things into your community. And so, there's two ways to look at it. Casinos, they can bring income, but they can also bring all kinds of other bad habits, and so I'm very grateful for the opportunities that the casino has provided for our community, but there's another side to that too, where there's a lot of addiction and stuff that comes with that too. So,
yeah, no, absolutely. So tell us about how did you decide in your career path that, I'm going to pour my heart and soul into finding better ways to help your community. And one of the biggest ways you can help any community is housing.
Well, I've always been in construction my whole life, but our tribe has an education department, and the education department has a program where they offer college classes through trades mainly, and that was all brought on by a survey that the community was given. They wanted more trades opportunities, and so education department listened and created these programs. I went through a carpentry program, and during that carpentry program, one of our former tribal council, he came and spoke to us about hempcrete and about industrial hemp, and it kind of sparked the interest to a few people in the class. And so he took a couple of us down to this summit, I think, U.S. Hemp Building Summit down in Austin, Texas. And so we went down there and we got to meet people in the hemp building industry or the hemp building space already. It kind of opened everyone's eyes that it wasn't just like these ideas, and so once we seen there was already this industry being built, it was kind of the turning point or the starting point, I guess, if you will, even though the idea was already put out there. Earl Pendleton, he was our tribal council, and this was all his idea coming in. That was kind of like the actual starting point of let's really get to building. And so, that's kind of, how we got here, I guess. It's been a lot of work to get to where we are now. but it's always the vision of Earl. He always had this vision to build these homes. Because, yeah, I mean, housing is our number one issue, our number one need here in our community. And I think in most communities, and not just tribal communities, I think housing is a big need everywhere. I was just listening on the radio and they were talking about in Colorado, a lot of the farms out there, the people that were helping out with the farms, they couldn't find housing. And so most of them moved to like the suburbs of Denver and into Denver, and because that was the only place they could find enough housing. And so a lot of the farmers out there, they can't even get people to help out because there's no. So it's not just tribal communities, it's everywhere, really.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we're addressing our issue or our housing crisis by trying to give our community members an alternative material, and so the decision is really ours, is if we're going to rebuild these homes or build new homes, what are the materials we're going to use? Are they going to only last 30 or 40 years and then just hand it down to the next generation to keep doing this problem? Or are we going to, address that problem and build homes that'll last for generations to come? And also a healthier option. Most of the homes that we build, especially affordable housing, it's the cheaper materials, which is in turn mostly plastics and, different petrochemical byproducts. And all of that then goes into our indoor air, what we're breathing in, and then has, effects on your health with, sick building syndrome and, the poor indoor air quality that we have, and everybody spends most of their time indoors. And so it's, we're trying to rebuild homes, but also give them healthier options, and then homes that are going to last a lot longer. And so it's,
right. And do it in an affordable, sustainable, right, carbon reduction way. So I mean, you're focused on housing that even if those houses get torn down, eventually all the byproducts can go right back to the earth.
Yeah. And affordable, it always, that term affordable housing, is it really affordable when it costs so much to operate these homes too, and then you're using so much energy. So there's all kinds of things about affordable housing that really isn't affordable, one with your dollars, but also with your health, and so we're trying to address both of those issues here. These homes that we're building with Hempcrete can be anywhere from 30 to 70% reduction in energy costs,
Sure.
And then also the indoor air quality. And so it's
well, I mean, listen, it's getting the attention of a lot of people. Like you said, all the news organizations find out about you and have flown up, and the daughter of Patagonia read about an article and, added to the stage. I mean, they did a whole documentary on you, and, Patagonia is a big global player. That is incredible.
Well, yeah, and that's one of the reasons why we caught wind of them, is because of, they're all about saving Mother Earth. Yvon Chouinard, the owner of Patagonia, or the former owner of Patagonia, instead of giving the company to his kids, he gave it to planet Earth. And so
right,
which is really cool. And so that is like the, I guess, the bridge between what we're doing here and why Patagonia would take interest in us is we're trying to do the same thing, just on we're trying to save the planet too. We're just trying to save our community. That's our planet, and we just hope it inspires other people to do the same, because really that's, and it really can be replicated. We're not inventing anything new here, Ivory Innovations, they, we got to their top 10 for the Ivory Prize this year. And in reality, there's nothing innovative about what we're doing. This is ancient technology. The only thing innovative is that we're doing it. That's what's innovative. So many other people could be doing this, at much larger scales at that. And I think the real special thing is we are doing it, and so really nothing innovative other than the fact that we're just trying to give our community members healthier material. And if that's innovative, then I think we're doing something wrong as a race, the way we're building. If that's just trying to get people in healthier homes, if that's innovative, then I think we need to maybe pump the brakes and see what we're doing here.
Well, listen, it's innovative because it's not happening the way we're currently doing it. Like you said, a lot of homes are built with all the petro and plastics and what have you. And I do want to say a big shout out to the Ivory Innovations folks. You know, Jenna over there was kind enough to say, "Hey, have you heard of what the Lower Sioux Indian community is doing?" I said, "No." She goes, "Well, I think they'd be good for having you on the show," and here we are. So big shout out, to Jenna Louie, and we really appreciate this because, again, this is a conversation about getting back to basics, right? Like you said, it's not, the materials aren't innovative. They've been around forever. They're just legalized now. That's one of the differences. But there's so many good, uses of hemp. Not just for, insulation, not just for hempcrete, but there's all kinds of uses for it. And it grows fast. And this is something that, like, within your communities, you guys can actually grow it and process it. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the great thing about hemp, as it is a crop that you can really build your local economy around. Right. And that's what we're doing. And we're keeping it local, and it really can just be replicated anywhere, and it doesn't have to be a tribal community. There's plenty of communities, even just nearby where we are here in rural Minnesota. There's communities that at one point were doing well, and they had schools and stuff in the community, and then for whatever reason, things get offshored, and whatever happens, now these farmers can't barely make it to anything, and so these schools get closed down, and then their kids are going to school half hour away or whatever it is. And so I really think hemp could revitalize those local economies as well. Those communities, say they got into, and it don't have to be hemp houses, say there's some other product that they want to process for or whatever, and they can start making that. And it's just, there's just so many different there's so much opportunity with hemp. And so
there's a lot of opportunity with hemp. Let's talk about, how this process came about, how you started manufacturing your own hemp. Walk us through what it was like trying to get this up and running.
So yeah, like I said, it predates my me being actually hired on. But Earl, he was preaching hemp for well over a decade. And he was preaching it before it was legal. And so a lot of people in the community, they frowned upon it, with the stigma that surrounds hemp. And so he had to get through that. And even when we first started growing the hemp and processing the hemp, there was a lot of pushback. A lot of the elders, didn't really know what the end use was going to be. Even with him telling them, we want to build houses out of it, it just sounds so far-fetched, until we actually had the first building, or the first house, even the first little demonstration building, they weren't really satisfied. But when we built the first house and they were able to walk through it and come and, then it was the light bulb moment for everybody. And it really, the community kind of got over that stigma and seeing that end goal, like, wow, we can grow our own homes and build our own homes with our own community members and house our own people. And it was just like a really aha moment for a lot of people. And it was a lot of the naysayers actually came on board. I know a lot of the naysayers are my mom's friends. A lot of the elders in the community, they were kind of against it. And the first house, when we had it done and they came and took a tour, a lot of those people that were against it, they started asking for hemp homes. When are you guys going to build our home? And so to see the community kind of rally around it has been great. But yeah, there's still a big uphill battle,
Sure.
And because then there's just so much that goes into it as well. There's a lot of costs that go into it, the startup of us actually building. And so getting over those first humps is, you got to spend a little bit to learn to do these things as well. And then you're going to have mistakes along the way. So, but for the community to continue to invest in us and our current leadership now, Earl, this was all his dream and his idea, and he's not in leadership anymore. And so our current leadership could have pulled the plug on it, and but they haven't. They continue to invest in us, and they continue to see the potential in hemp. And so that's what keeps us, fighting that uphill battle and going,
Right.
whereas a lot of communities that want to get into this, maybe their leadership isn't willing to take that risk or to invest into hemp. And so so we're very lucky that our community has rallied around it and that our leadership has continued to invest in it.
Walk me through the production side of this. Your first project, did you process your own hemp, and what part of hemp are you using?
Yeah, so the very first project we did was actually just a demonstration shed, and that was done with all of our own hemp that we grew, we processed. We didn't actually process it here on the reservation. We processed it a few miles away because we didn't have our hemp campus constructed yet. Now that we have our hemp campus, our processing equipment is actually right here on the reservation. And then, so for our builds, we have used other people's hemp in our builds as well, along with some of our own hemp. And so since we started building 2 years ago and we didn't have the hemp campus up and running, we had to go out and purchase some hemp. Most of it was purchased right here in the state of Minnesota. So luckily there is other processors, in the country. We've actually purchased some from South Dakota as well. So that's a good thing about the hemp industry is it's growing. And so anybody that out there that wants to, build a project or get into it, there's material available pretty much in every part of the country now. But as far as we go, we're trying to use all of our own product as far as the hemp goes. The binders, we get from different places, but yeah, I mean, the way the process goes, it gets mixed up right on site. If you're doing the cast in place or the spray right on site, we mix the inside of the hemp stem, which is called the hurd. Mix that with a lime-based binder and water right on site. It goes into, if you're doing it by hand, it would go right into buckets and then placed right into forms. If you're doing it with a spray system, then it same thing, gets mixed on site, goes into the Irizi spray system or whatever spray system you're going to use. We use the Irizi system. And it goes right into the wall or your forms pneumatically with a big air compressor, a lot faster than if you're doing it by hand. And then the other process is then to do prefab panels or blocks, and you can either cast those on site or off site. We do ours off site in a controlled environment. So, we're up here in Minnesota where we have a very short building season. And so, to make it really practical, we got to do a lot of our stuff prefabricated. And so those are really the 4 ways of doing hempcrete. You can do it by hand, you can do it with a spray system, you can do prefab blocks or prefab panels.
Prefab blocks or prefab panels and modular, you said, right?
Yeah, so modular would be, you could do panels would be the best way to do modular. There is a place in Newburyport, Massachusetts that does the panels right on site, and it's literally like the entire side of the building is all one panels, whereas you see our picture here, that's actually 22 panels. They're 4 foot by 8 foot, all pieced together. And those are done off-site and then put in place. We actually put those in place by hand. You can put them in place with like a skid steer or something. Otherwise, if you do the larger panels, then you're going to have a crane and a crane operator on site to place those. So we think these 4 by 8 panels is kind of like the route we're trying to go, where we can, you don't need heavy machinery.
Tell me about the construction of these walls. Are they 10-inch walls?
So these walls here that are in this picture are 12-inch thick walls. There's 22 panels. It created a 520 square foot 1-bedroom home. That's what you see right there. And they were placed in 4.5 hours. So in 4.5 hours, we had all of the walls completed. Then the next day we had the roof on and dried in. And so in a couple of days, you can have a dried in building ready to be finished when you have prefab, and it can be in any shape. It doesn't have to be like that. It doesn't have to be that small. It can be any size as well. This was our first project with the panels. And so this is, and we were really, really happy with the way they went up. 4.5 hours, that's, Yeah, I mean, I think if you're really trying to go after, a housing crisis or trying to combat like homelessness in a community or in an inner city, I think these prefab tiny homes is really the way to go. Pop them up real fast, and they're going to last a lot longer. Because the one thing with affordable housing, or even like these emergency homes that you see, or like these FEMA shelters or whatever, most of them are with materials that are going to have to go into the landfill eventually. And so with these, modular hempcrete homes, you can pop them up real fast, but they last so much longer, and they're never going to end up in the landfill. It can be completely recycled or put right back into the earth if
Right.
you basically just, limestone that you're going to put back into it's going to be a soil amendment at that point.
So tell me a little bit about finishing process. Are you using gypsum board, or are you using a lime? Is that what you're doing? A lime wash finish and the interior walls, similar to like the old plastering techniques we used to do?
Yeah, so we've done different methods. For the exterior, we've done a lime plaster, or we've also done a ventilated rain screen where we add, a vapor permeable wrap, and then an air gap,
Right.
and then you can finish it with anything at that point. You can use whatever siding. We've used steel siding. We've used vinyl siding, which is pretty frowned upon in the natural building space. But to keep these projects moving along faster, and to keep the cost down as well, because the historical lime plaster gets to be quite expensive, and then it's very labor intensive as well, so it takes a lot longer. And then on the interior, we've finished all of our hempcrete so far with a lime plaster, a historic lime plaster. We're going to start playing around with clays as well, but what we've used is just the lime plaster.
Yeah.
And then with any of our like interior walls, we've used conventional materials. But yeah, we've kept out all of the latex paints or any of that type of stuff over the hempcrete. You want to keep it a natural finish.
What are you doing for like your MEPs, electrical, heating and cooling? Because if you're doing, they look like they're closed wall panels. Is that what they are?
Yep, they are. And so when we've done the hempcrete on site, we've done either way. We've ran our electrical and plumbing prior and just hempcreted around it. Or what our electrician likes to do now is he likes us just to do all of the hempcrete, wait for it to cure, and then he comes back and cuts his little channels in with his wire. It's a lot faster for him. He doesn't like dealing with the Smurf tube, and so with hempcrete, you don't want to have any metal conduit or anything, and so you have to end up using, we call it Smurf tube around here, but it's like this plastic blue tube that all the electricians hate. It's kind of a pain to work with. And so, for our electrician, he likes to do it that way, but really you can do it any way you want. Hempcrete is very easy to work with. It's very easy to fix or replace if you need to add anything or modify anything, And so with the project that we're actually working on across the street right now, our electrician came in and he was like, well, I kind of think we should hang a TV there. And there was no backer or anything for a TV to get hung onto. And so one of the guys, he cut a little channel with just a circle saw. Cut out 2 channels to put braces for 2x4s. And then he placed a 2x8 backer in there. Put it all in, filled the hempcrete back in, and within 2 hours, everything was, ready for the electrician to hang his TV and everything on. And so if you were doing that with drywall or anything else, you're gonna piss someone off. Because they're gonna come back in and fix all that drywall up the right way and tape and mud and and
the mess, right?
Texture back. And so, which is fine too, because that is a special skill that drywall people they develop over time, or they get taught that and they learn it over those years. And so nobody is born knowing how to do historic lime plaster or hempcrete either, And so for the builders that don't want to, do hempcrete or that because it's like this foreign material, it's like, well, you weren't born knowing how to do drywall either, So it's a really easy material to work with. And so
Let me ask you this. I mean, you're not doing this for profit and selling to others. You're really truly doing this for your community. So, how does your philosophy, of building for the next 7 generations, um, you know, shape kind of your decision making? Like, how do you like your decisions on these projects aren't about profitability, or
Mhm.
are they?
They're not. And so that's where we kind of even butt heads with some people in the finance department, because this
Right.
is a whole community effort. It's just so we answer to the tribal council, and then the tribal council, is in charge of all of these other departments: a finance department, or housing department, education. I think there's like 150 employees or something that they're in charge of all these different departments. And so the decision making really, I mean, obviously, it always comes down to can we even afford to build this project or do this project? And so, you kind of do bump head. We kind of do bump heads with the finance department because their main goal is to make sure that the community is making money. And what we're doing, might not make money right now, and it might not make money ever. It might
Right.
only be making healthier homes for our community members to live in. But how much does that cost to a community? How much does healthy, indoor air quality cost to a community? How much does, cancers and different, health issues cost to a community? So I don't know, so I always
Well, I
get
mean,
asked that question right away. How much does Hempcrete cost? Everyone that comes in and takes the tours and sees it, and I tell them, we can make it cost pretty much the same as conventional materials. We're right on par with
right.
conventional materials. But how much are these unquantifiables? How do we put those into? I don't know how to put those into dollar amounts, and I'm sure there's smart people out there that can figure out exactly how much these cancers cost communities and stuff, and they can put them
Right.
into those. But I
Yeah.
don't. It's
Well, I mean, listen, it's kind of like offsite construction and modular and panel. You don't look at it the same way you look at traditional building, right? Even though you're using some of the traditional processes and doing it, it's the availability of time, getting people in housing faster, right? You can't quantify some of these things the same way you can with numbers on a spreadsheet and saying, oh, there's a cost overrun there and this and that. So it's hard to put a value on that. It's also hard to put a value on the environment, not only for the environment for the people that are in the
Mhm.
houses, but for everybody else that has to live in the environment
Mhm.
as we speak, the land, the air, the water, all of these things are, currently in danger.
Yeah, for sure. And that's our decision to make, as consumers, as builders, as humans. What are we gonna build our homes out of, or what products are we gonna purchase, or
Right.
and so really that decision is ours to make. Are we gonna continue to build with plastics and then just hand that down to the next people, or the next to our kids, and let it be their problem? And so, yeah, I guess I don't know. I know what my decision is. I know where I stand, and it's not just like it's really for everybody's choice to be made, and it's because otherwise we leave it up to these big corporations, and I don't think they're going to change their ways anytime soon.
Right.
They already make quite a bit of money, and for them to change their ways, they would have to probably put a bunch of money to change their products and all that. And the only way they're going to change is if us, the consumers, say no, we don't want these petrochemical products, or we don't want these single-use houses that are going into landfills or being full of mold right away. And so it's really up to us, because these big companies, they're not going to change their way. So it's
That's
as
right.
cliche as it sounds, like whatever, we the people, or whatever you want to say, like we really do gotta just take control and
Well,
say
it takes the message like you're delivering, right? We've had some of the biggest building scientists in the world on the show, and a lot of people do not realize that houses are making us sick.
Mhm.
Maybe your kids don't have allergies. It might be the mold problem in behind your walls that you
Mhm.
can't see, and those migraine headaches that you're getting. Again, from all the dust pollution and mold and everything that's happening in between those walls. And I tell everybody all the time, like, it's the easiest thing to say to somebody when they say, well, I don't get it. All right. Take a nice glass of water out into the hot sun and set it on a table and watch it sweat. What do you think happens when you have air conditioning inside your house? You have a wall with no thermal breaks, and that cold air is hitting the heat on the outside. It's sweating just like an ice cube in between your walls all day, all summer long. And then what happens with mold? Mold grows where there's moisture and trapped with no air circulation. So, yeah, I get it, man. I mean, you're right on the money with it. And the healthier your community is, everybody's better for that.
Yeah. And so we have like a house, the one that I'm talking about across the street. It's a full retrofit. We completely gutted everything out of the home, and it was built in we think in the late 1800s. We think it's like 130 years old. And the main part of the home had no plastic vapor barriers in the walls. And there was no mold at all in that part of the house. It was probably a pain to heat and cool because it was drafty,
right.
Because they didn't have the plastic vapor barriers. But then in the part of the home where it was all plastic vapor barriers and pink fiberglass insulation, it's actually the home that's in the Patagonia film. And it's just all black mold. Everywhere is black mold that has the plastic vapor barriers and the pink insulation, And so how do we fix that? It's like we don't want these plastic vapor barriers, especially here in Minnesota. You want to talk about like condensation. It's, we get extremes both ways, hot and cold. And so it's, we're just asking for trouble in those wall cavities and then trapping it behind plastic. We're just building up moisture and then trapping it. And that's just
right.
a recipe for mold, really, and so.
It is. Well, listen, Danny, I mean, we're getting close on time here. And I will say, though, your process is not something just other tribal community leaders can take and follow and use. I mean, this isn't something you're just trying to keep to yourself. This is something that you want to share outside of your community as well. And it's not about selling product. It's about teaching them how they can do what you're doing, right? And how they can provide better housing. And I think our governments and cities could probably take a lesson from this as well when they're trying to tackle, the housing crisis that we have and the homelessness and, everything that's happening, not just in this country, but around the world.
Yeah, and we invite all tribes to come. We've had quite a few tribes come and take tours, not even just tribes. We've had plenty of state departments as well. Pretty much every state department in the state of Minnesota has came and taken multiple tours. The governor of Minnesota has been here, the lieutenant governor. We've had different senators. And so we've had all these different people from different communities come. And, I tell everybody, we're an open book. We'd love to. We have a lot of homes that need to be built here, and we would love to have people come and learn with us and help us rebuild our community and then take that back to their community. Or have us, come to their community and help teach their, building crew or, whatever kind of like what happened to us, And we're actually having the International Hemp Building Symposium right here at the Lower Sioux this year. And so it's the first time it's ever been in the United States. And so it's the International Hemp. Yeah, thanks. It's the International Hemp Building Association that puts it on. Steve Allen. He's wrote some hempcrete books. He's one of the godfathers of industrial hemp. And so, that'll be here in October 3rd through the 5th. And so we invite everybody to come, especially from other communities that want to learn, because it's going to be people from all over the world. Right. The top people in the industry will all be here, right here at the Lower Sioux for those dates.
And that's great, and listen, outside of learning about hemp, you get to learn about culture. You get to learn about the Indian community and really take it all in. And so it's, I think it's a win-win, right? Because I know I'm interested in that. I'd like to come just to learn about the culture more.
Yeah. And everybody that comes to take the hemp tour, we usually give them a tour of the historic site. And we have an art incubator where they can come and look at all of our local artists, work that they do. It's it's an open invite. We do have so half of the proceeds for this hemp building symposium goes to this school that we have in the works right now. And so there's only 5 first language Dakota speakers left in the state of Minnesota. And actually now there's only 4 because one of them just passed away. His funeral was last week. And so, the language is basically on the brink of extinction. And so now a lady in the community, a wonderful lady named Vanessa Goodthunder, she came up with this immersion school that they've had for the last few years. And it takes the kids from birth to age 6 and teaches them Dakota language as their first language.
Okay.
And now they're expanding that school up to grade 6 and then eventually a high school. But this school is going to be a 90,000 square foot school, and she wants it all built out of hempcrete. And so half of the proceeds from this symposium are going to go to this immersion school to bring back the language. And so it's I say the hemp program's pretty cool. I'm part of it, so I'm a little bit biased, but I think what she has going, trying to bring back the language, is really the most important thing that we have right now in the community. So it's kind of like, we get to marry the two together. Yeah. And so that's, anybody that comes, they get to learn a lot about the culture, and, we treat everyone, very, respectful. We have this saying, to be a good relative, and so like, there's a lot of misconceptions about reservations and tribal communities, and like it's all a bad place and that. And so most of the people pretty much everybody that comes here and takes tours, they leave with a different perspective of that. So,
but you know what? I see that in the offsite community too. As soon as you take somebody into a factory and you show them the process of a different way of doing it, a better way, like their eyes open up, like, I had no idea. And then they're sold, right? And you're absolutely right. Sometimes you just have to step in with both feet and take it all in for yourself, and don't read, and believe everything you read in the news and in papers, and like go see for yourself.
Yeah, for sure.
Danny, is there anything that I left out that you want to talk about? And also make sure that you kind of plug, like, how can people support you? How can people help you?
I mean, main thing is, is funding. We're always, so we're basically running off of just whatever projects we can find, or any like grants, or, so we're kind of just barely hanging on by a thread, and we just, make a donation, or, really just funding is the main thing that we need help on. And if you can't help with funding, go out in your local community and see what you can do, spread the word, spread the, because the awareness or whatever, I guess,
Well, that's it. Word of mouth is just as powerful as any money you can get as well, because it can open the doors, just like with Patagonia and some of these other opportunities that came your way to tell your story. So hopefully all of that goes a long way. Ivory, Innovation Group, heard of you as well. And you were nominated, and made the top 10. It's a big deal to make the top 10 with them, just so you know. So
yeah. We're very grateful. I think there was like 300 and some people that were entered in that. So to make the top 10 was, pretty incredible.
Wow. I love it. Danny, man, I hope I can come visit you one of these days. I'd love to tell your story on location, even tour one of your houses. Maybe we'll even film at one of your houses. We'll go to your factory, and then we'll film at the house as well. Just to show the world what it looks like. And if you're not willing to wait for me to get there, watch their Patagonia story.
Yeah. And open invite. You're welcome here anytime. Come to the symposium in October if you're not traveling the world. I know you said you're always all over the place. So
I am, but this is also a good story. So I'll put the dates down, and maybe we can make that happen. And in the meantime, for all you watching, go to their website and the Lower Sioux Indian community website, and the video to the Patagonia films is on there, and check it out. I think it'd be well worth your time. And I have to tell you, it's a great story. And Danny, you might have another show business. You're pretty good in that film.
Yeah, right.
So
that was the one thing about the film, is they never told us to like do anything, or nothing in that film was scripted or anything. They were just kind of and that was their story. We didn't tell them to put anything in there. That they took tours of the historic site, and that was their story.
That's right. Well, hey, do your thing, and we're just gonna capture and tell your story, and that's what I love about it. So Danny, thanks so much. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing your story. And again, congratulations on making the top 10. on the Ivory Awards, the Ivory Prize, as they call it. So excellent. Hey, for the rest of you out there, guess what? It's Monday. What does that mean? You got 4.5 days to keep building it better. Don't change this channel just yet, not until after we're done, but then you can get back to it. Danny, I know you got to get back to it as well. For the rest of you out there, make sure you thank these supporting members as well. And we'd love to have all of you out there helping support us so we can continue to tell these stories around the world. I'm Dave Cooper. Danny, thank you very much. Everybody else, have a wonderful Monday, and we'll see you Wednesday. I'm Dave Cooper. Thanks for watching. Bye now. What an amazing show. Thank you to all of our sponsors for helping us to continue to bring all of these innovative conversations to all of you out there. Please visit them, see what they have to offer you. And as always, subscribe to the YouTube channel and ring that bell. It would mean the world to us. I'm Dave Cooper. Thanks for watching.